Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Shashana Raminti Saidi. This video is for the scanning and hardening of OS Ubuntu. So these are the scanning tools that I'm using. RK Hunter, Clam AV, Moldat, and Linux. So the first tool is RK Hunter. RK Hunter can check all the files and generate a summary report from the scanning. So from the scanning, as you can see, there are 6 possible keys and 1 possibly infected file. So RK Hunter also created a log file so I can easily view the warnings. So these are the warnings from the log file. So the next tool is ClamAV. ClamAV can be used to scan for infected files and remove or isolate those infected files inside the system. So from the summary, there is 0 infected file. So I'm going to download an infected file from the internet, the file ecar.com, and run the scan again. So from earlier, you can see that there is 1 infected file detected. So this shows that ClamAV works. So the next tool, the third tool is Moldat. Moldat is actually Linux malware detector. So after scanning Moldat, we will generate a report where you can view the report from the terminal. And every time you scan, there's a new report. So from the scanning that I just did, you can see there's 1 total hit. That is the file that I downloaded just now, the infected file. And every time you scan, there's a new report, and this is to list all the reports. So the last tool that I am using for scanning is Linux. Linux actually is an update system. It scans your system and then creates suggestions and warnings for you. So let's first take a look at the warning. So those are the warnings from Linux, and then we'll take a look at the suggestion. And these are the suggestions. So I'm only taking like 2 suggestions from Linux for my OS hardening. So I'm choosing install fail2ban as an intrusion detection system to detect multiple authentication errors and disable USB storage. For the hardening part, I chose fail2ban disable USB storage, SSH and secure SSH and SE Linux. So the first OS hardening that I'm doing is fail2ban. Fail2ban detects for multiple authentication error, and it can also block IP address if the IP address has tried to access the system with multiple authentication errors. So once you're done with the installation, you have to start and enable the service and edit the file jail.local. So these are the lines that you have to add to the file geo.local for the setting. So I've set the max retry to 3. The user will get blocked after his third attempt. So the next hardening is disable USB usage. You can simply do this by editing the file blacklist.conf and rc.local. So at the file blacklist.conf, you can just add the line blacklist USB underscore storage. And at the file rc.local, you can mod prop the USB storage. This is a really simple hardening technique as you only have to edit 2 files. So the third hardening is enabling SSH and securing SSH. So I don't have SSH enabled on my system, so I first have to install and enable the SSH. So I've successfully installed SSH. So you can secure SSH by editing the file sshd underscore config. So the few changes that I made was to change the port from 22 to 99 and disable permit root login. And so I changed the owner and mode to root and 600 for the SSHD file to prevent other users from editing the file after restarting the service. The last hardening that I am doing is SE Linux. To install SE Linux, you have to first stop AppArmor before installing SE Linux on and all the packages. So after installing, you have to reboot the system. So SE Linux will be disabled until you reboot the system. Then you need to set enforce to 1 and then edit the file config for SE Linux and set the SE Linux to enforcing. So for the second scanning, I'm doing it in the same order as before. So the first one is Hunter. So obviously there's a lot of warnings, probably because of the SE Linux. Oh, and also the infected file that I downloaded before. Next, with ClamScan, I will first remove the infected file that I downloaded before. So as you can see, I've successfully removed the infected file. So it shows that there's 0 infected file. Next is Moldat. So total hit is 0. So the last scanning is Linux audit system. So the warnings still stay the same because I didn't do OS hardening based on the warnings. I did it based on the suggestion. So there are actually more suggestions because of the SE Linux and because I enable SSH and secured the SSH. But the fail to ban suggestion and disable USB storage suggestion is not in the suggestion list anymore. So that is all for my OS Ubuntu scanning and hardening. Thank you for your time.